Politics plays a big role in Endless Space 2 as it can influence deeply your gameplay. You can change government, have elections, and pass laws that will apply and reinforce your strategy. Politics happen in the Senate screen of Endless Space 2, which you can go to by clicking on this little Senate icon. It also indicates the leading political party. At the moment this is the Industrialist Party. From that screen you can change government, ask for a survey. You've got your active laws and your leading political parties, and depending on your government type you can get between 1 and 3 political parties, and between 2 I think and 6 laws as well. You can pass law, and the different laws you can pass depend on the political parties sieging in your Senate. For example, here I've got the Industrialist and the Scientist political parties in my Senate, which means I can pass laws from these 2 political parties. Elections happen every 10 to 20 turns depending if you play on fast or normal speed, and if you want you can ask for a survey that will tell you a little bit more about what the Senate breakdown will look like at the next election. For example, here I can see that the Industrialists are very likely to win, but it seems that the Scientists will not hold the second position. It means I might not have access to the Scientist laws after the next election, which will happen in 1 turn. Depending on your government type, you will be able to sometimes influence elections. You can always give official support, which gives a small boost to a given political party. Sometimes you can use dust or sometimes influence to make some stronger influence to an election. You can intimidate citizens to let them not vote for a given party, or reinforce and give a strong boost to a given political party. For example, here I see that the Industrialists are very strong. I probably won't be able to overcome such an advance, but if I want the militarists to be sieging at the Senate as well, I can give them a strong boost by reinforcing them. So we're going to see how an election happens in the next screen. Every system has a certain number of representatives on the Senate and they each vote. So the Senate is the sum of all the different parties voting. It's quite interesting because the discrepancies at a micro level are usually bigger at a Senate level. So for example, it's kind of like normal elections. The parties which have minorities will not likely, even if they have 10% support, they might get 1 or 2 representatives. And that's what's happening here. So we've got Industrialists in the lead and Militarist as the second political party in the Empire. They got some support from the religious, which have backed this party. So always look at which party backs another party. It's always important to look at that. And also, if parties stay on the Senate for a certain time, or if you gain a long presence in the Senate, they will get more experience that allows them to use stronger laws. And here I've just unlocked this law for the militarists, level 3 law. So if we look again at our Senate now, we do have 2 political parties there, a very big majority for the Industrialist. We've got the default law for the Industrialist active law. So the party sieging and leading the Senate will always have an activated law by default. The other thing that is important to note and pay attention when you recruit heroes, for example, is the skills that applies only if they are political leader of a party sieging at the Senate. In this example, I get 50 influence per trading company, which is not that great, but I also get a 25% manpower capacity on Empire, a bonus of 25%, which is pretty good. The last thing to have a look, and that can help you influence or think about the kind of political parties that's going to be in the lead, is the population overview, because every type of population have a different affinity with different political parties. And it's interesting to see that when there's an even increasing scientist support, the Imperials, for example, the Imperials population will increase the scientist support for the scientific party, but also that will help the Industrialist. It's always interesting to see that militarists are opposed to pacifists, but we saw that the militarist got support from the religious, and the industrialist got support from the pacifist, and the scientists. This is because they are closer to each other. So votes are moving from one party to another, for example. It's interesting to note that, for example, I've got few Zevali in my empire, and it's good to know that they will always back up the scientists as much as possible. And the more population you get, the better bonus you're gonna get. So once you reach 10 population, you've got the first level of bonus, and it's always the backing up of a certain political party. Every faction apart from the cravers can change government type. Certain government type come with some advantage, others with obviously cons. And for example, the Federation set the political party representation to 2 and has a +1 system occupied before triggering expansion disapproval empire. They've got some elections actions that you can have as well, so you can use influence to influence the actions, the elections. It's probably not the best type of government. Having only 2 representatives on the political party limits the number of laws you can pass, and having one system, it doesn't make a big difference. Democracy sets the political party representation to 3 in Senate. They give you 1 more law, and you've got a +1 approval per population on system, which is pretty awesome. It means your population are more likely to be quite happy, so it means you do not have to build buildings and system improvements that gives more approval to your system, which is something you can use to do something else. I think democracy is one of the best type of government. The dictatorship set low slots to 2 on Senate, which is very, very low, I would say. Rebellions start developing when a system is unhappy, so this is actually more approval than other. I think you get unhappy at 30% approval, but for others you will get rebellions when you reach mutinous, which is around 10 or 15%. And it only set political party representation to 1 on the Senate, so definitely the worst kind of government is dictatorship. You also do not have any election action possible. The Republic is another very good one because it set the political party representation to 2 on the Senate, but law effects are intensified by 50%. And interestingly enough, you can influence action using dust by doing primary elections or having a strong arm lobbying. Quite interesting, really. So you can change government type if you're in one of these 4. For example, I can do that. However, that means an anarchy period for a certain period. Also, you need a minimum approval rating before you can do that, and it costs, I would say, a lot of influence, but by the late game it's not a lot. For example, I could go and decide to go to democracy. Anarchy has begun for 2 turns, and I can see here, I can see in the screen that I'm in anarchy for 2 turns, but my empire approval will stay really high, for example. A side note about the cravers, they have the autocracy type of government, and they are the only one with that. It means that they cannot change government. They have 3 law slots available on the Senate, and they have only 1 political party here, which is obviously not that great. Only the major population can vote, and anarchy cannot happen, but changing government type is impossible. What does it mean? It means that because it's very likely that your main population is going to be cravers, and your cravers have a very strong boost towards the militarist. It's interesting to see that even pacifist things will provide support to militarist. It basically means that as the cravers, you are very likely to always get the militarist political party as the leading party, and I think, kind of makes sense. The cravers are the worst in terms of politics in the game. The goal of the Senate, on top of having a certain representation and having heroes that have skills that influence your FIDSI, is to pass laws. You can pass a certain number of laws depending on what you've unlocked and your government type, and the different type of laws you can pass depends on the political parties that sit on the Senate. You can see all the different laws that you can pass in this screen, in the available tab. We're going to look at the all tab because I want to talk a little bit about all the different type and all the different laws you can pass. You've got some neutral independent laws that you can pass, which are base ones. They all have a bonus and a malus. For example, the Super Tax Act gives you +4 dust per population on planets, but has a malus of 20 approval, -20 approval on systems. All of these work with a bonus and a malus. So if you are in deficit of a certain thing, for example, dust, approval, science, or manpower, you can use these laws and pass them. They all need a certain level of political experience, so always keep an eye on that. Some are pretty good, especially if you're at the end in the late game. For example, you don't care much about approval because you already have a very strong approval, because for example you might be a democracy, so you then will be able to pass this law and reinforce your science output pretty strongly. The other thing you can do is see the laws of the different parties. So they all have 5 laws. There's a default law that gets activated automatically when the certain political party is in power. For example, the industrialist one will give 10% of industry spent for any construction conversion to dust. I'm saying 10% because I'm currently a republic, which means that law effects are intensified. So instead of being 10 by default, it's 15 in this game. And every law has, every party have 5 different laws. The first one only costs 1 influence per population on an empire. So I've got a total of 125 population in my empire. It will cost me 125. And level 2, I've got the Mineral Measures Act. This one is more expensive and it requires more political experience. Level 3 requires political experience to be entrenched, and the level 4 requires political experience to be potent. So the longer your political party stays in the Senate, the more experience they gain, and the better the laws you can pass are. Let's have a quick look at the different laws you can pass for the different parties. Industrialist party is very good, I think, for 2 laws. The Mineral Measures Act, which gives you +1 resource generation on strategic resource deposit and 15% industry per strategic deposit. I usually try to get as many strategic as possible in all of the games that I play, so having this law is quite fantastic, especially at its current cost, which is only 2 influence per population. Work Not Shirk Act is also insanely good because it gives, as you can see, I've got a total of 125 population that will give me a bonus of 1,000 industry on my overall empire, which is pretty insane as well. The Scientist Party is also one of the best. It can give you, and it's very versatile, I would say, as well. So if you want to build a lot of things, you've got a -30% system improvement cost reduction, which is 30% is really, really good. You can get 4 movement points on ships as well if you need to explore or you're at war and you need to move fast. If you need more food, you can get a +40% food output on systems and a 50% damage on weapon modules, which is insanely good. And that's why I think this, having the Scientist Party at leading the Senate is very, or at least being on the Senate is very strong. It's because of the variety of laws you get from them. The pacifists are not that good because they only solve one problem, in my opinion, which is the approval problem. So this one is actually very strong. It gives you +30 approval per alliance and system, +15 per peace on system as well. And you will get with that 1 more luxury resource per deposit. But luxuries, if you've got, you always have too many of them, I think. It's not that awesome. The Fair Trade Bill, however, is very, very good. So if you need a certain type of or any type of boost, you can get it here. However, I think because it's not specialized in any, it might not be that good, because in your game you usually want to have a lot of dust, but you don't really care about science, or a lot of industry to build a lot of fleets, but then you don't care much about food. So it's much better to have something that gives you +40% food if you want to have a lot of population, rather than a small +10 or 15% dust, I think, or at least that's my opinion. The ecologist party has got a good default law which lets you colonize planets that you cannot colonize, otherwise you can't see it on that screen. The default law are not showing the one that gets activated, and you can see it with a little pin here that only show when they are in power. However, the rest of their laws are not that great, I think. They force you to play with a lot of, obviously, population types and a lot of population at all. Play very wide. The religious party is quite interesting because I think it has, in my experience, one of the best laws in the game, which is the sense and sinner build. So this forces the approval rating to be content, and if you're a republic, it forces it to be happy. I find it very, very interesting and very important because I think you can align all of your strategy and gameplay around that law, basically saying that I don't care at all about the approval, I can do whatever I want, I don't need to build anything that's going to speed up or improve my approval rating, I can mix population, I can colonize planets with not beneficial anomalies, and I would still get happy approval rating all around, which is, I think, insanely strong if you play it correctly. The last political party that we haven't discussed yet is the militarist. Militarists have very good laws, especially if you want to build an army and fight, mainly because it has lower fleet cost. If you build a lot of ships, this is pretty good. This law is not that great. You can get more approval as well, but it's not the best. I think this is very good as well. It gives plus 40% damage on weapon modules and 40% troops damage, so it means when you invade, you're likely to be superior to your opponent. However, I don't think the militarist is the best military party to be leading if you want to do war. I think the scientists are still better because of the 50% damage on weapon modules, and also because of the star boogie build to allow you to move faster. So maybe a mix of the two is actually very good if you want to go at war. There are also some laws that you can get through quest or through minor factions. I don't have them all here, obviously I can't show you all of them, but just keep that in mind. For example, this is a game of Riftborn, and you can see that they have an extra law that is the Scrap Kings, which is insanely good because it gives you for free, no upkeep, a minus 30% ship industry cost on system. So that's something you definitely want to have passed as the Riftborn, potentially. That ends up our little episode about government, politics, Senate on Endless Space 2. I will finish by saying that I think it's always good to have an idea of the type of Senate you would like to have and why you would like to have, because laws can give you a massive boost. As we can see, you can get like 40% boost on certain types of FIDSI or 15% boost on everything, which is very strong. However, you need to know how it works before you used it, and you always need to make sure you've got the influence to be able to pass and sustain the different laws you have. Also, pay attention of the skills that you get from your heroes leading the party. That's very important when you recruit hero. Always think about, oh, okay, I'm playing very pacifist, so I might want to have a pacifist hero to benefit from his skills. I wouldn't say it's a game breaker because you're not gonna pick your strategy depending on the Senate. However, it's a mechanism to reinforce your strategy. So I know I want to play aggressive, I want to play militarist, I want to build a large fleet. So I'm interested by the industrialist, the militarist, and the scientist. So I'll pay attention to that, and I might, for example, during an election, reinforce them. Anyway, I hope to see you in the next episode. Goodbye.